Hi there, I'm Aaron Wilder and I curated the Amos Eno Gallery exhibition Unstable Language on artsy.net. And with me is one of the artists in the show, Sandra Cavanagh. Sandra, thanks so much for being with me.
Thank you very much. I'm absolutely delighted to be asked, and it's a lot of fun to be part of the show. It's a terrific show. I feel privileged. Thank you, Aaron.
The show's concept, Unstable Language, let's talk about that. What does the concept mean to you?
I was particularly drawn to it because it nailed a certain aspect of language, which is its unreliability in its usage and how it can both work in favor of oneself as a citizen or belonging to a community and how it can work against. And I chose this series based on a series of drawings and printouts from old ID documents and so on, to photographs which I collaged and rephotographed and printed so as to describe the difference between the harshness of a thumbprint and the fluidity of a drawing, and to highlight what at the time was very troubling to me, which was the double-edged sort of fact about a ID document that can work in favor of an individual or can work against an individual, depending on whether it is a benevolent state or whether it is an aggressive, abusive state. And having witnessed very closely and being a participant of well, not participant, I was a passive, sort of was just a citizen of a dictatorship that was extremely abusive. The fact of being a number within that system was extremely dangerous to the individual. So the ID document can be both savior and can equally condemn somebody to a very dangerous place, including death. I mean, there
And
was
you're referring to the Argentine government while people were being disappeared.
yes, yes, yes. People were being disappeared. People didn't know where they were standing. There was general fear and complete mistrust of government, and in a way that's never entirely gone away. Argentina is a place where is usually pitched, the citizen is usually pitched against the state in a state of mistrust against the state or government, rather than considering themselves a beneficiary of it. You just never know. There was the impunity of the dictatorship at the time has remained. And of course, there's a legacy. There's disappeared people and children being given away in unfair, in sort of bizarre adoption procedures, processes that were completely illegal. All of that has remained in the consciousness, in the national consciousness.
And you made the distinction between a benevolent state and a dictatorship. Are there any benevolent states?
I think some states, some republics and democracies in general work a bit better. There is recourse to justice. There are courts that work. But when you have a system that is so terribly corrupt by a military power,
Mm.
is then it becomes terribly dangerous. So yes, I do think there is a difference. And having experienced both, I've lived in Europe and I've lived in the United States, so I know what a functioning democracy should look like, even though it is thoroughly imperfect. I'm not saying that our society works better, but I've seen how very, very bad and how very dangerous it can be.
Yes.
So there is a difference.
Let's have a look at your work that's in the show. Coding Citizenship is the name of the project that's in the exhibition. And as you said, the work is comprised of portraits and these kinds of markers of identity, like you said, thumbprints, identity documents. Um, how would you characterize in viewing this work and creating this work, the how would you characterize the relationship between this kind of citizenship documentation and a notion of personal identity, either for yourself or the viewer?
Yes, it's interesting to think of oneself as one's experience of self and one's one pertaining to a much larger system. One is, of course, terribly private, and in the other one sets a ton of responsibilities, and one expects rights, which are two very, very different things, public persona and private persona. So the public persona in this case, of course, when a document can be dangerous to one, the public persona is dangerous to the private persona. You really don't want to be known. I mean, you really don't want the system to know about you, or at least to know the least possible about you. One is, and in this age, today, we could translate this into the broader culture of today, where social media leaves us so exposed
Mm.
when we air our own views, which we do all the time, or many of us do, some, in one way or another. I do through my work. Um, so so that is an interesting contrast. But I do think it's perpetuated. And as I say, it is perpetuated today. There
Yeah.
was,
Sorry, go ahead.
that image is interesting because it has I can see a little badge from the police department, the stamp from the police department down there. So everything, all of this documentation in Argentina was done through the police. So you go to the Central Police Office, and you would be rubber stamped, and your fingerprints would be taken, and your photograph would be taken, and blah blah. Um, it wasn't a separate authority. So interesting, isn't it? Police. Hmm.
Yes. There's, as you were talking, I was thinking about, um, like you said, the persona, public versus private, and there is a danger, can be a danger in visibility itself. Um, and so I was just thinking about these self-portraits are basically of you. And how have you felt visible or invisible? Um, just reflecting on this work.
Well, at the time, as a girl, you was growing up young in a place you where you witnessed a certain type of violence perpetuated by a military power. I mean, I witnessed from my school bus.
Mm.
Bodies, dead people on the side of the road, that sort of thing, surrounded by soldiers, or people getting lifted from the street and banged into a car and then disappearing, that sort of thing. So in that context, you just really didn't want the authorities to notice you. Um, it was dangerous. It was extremely dangerous. So yeah,
Yeah.
white
And go ahead.
veiled to the system, preferably.
Right. Sort of personal camouflage.
Yes, there was a lot of activism as well at the time. So, and I will say that I was pretty outspoken. Um, I had a few warnings from various people, but I was outspoken, and that again made you feel extremely vulnerable. The state shouldn't have the right to make the citizen feel vulnerable, not vulnerable by the hand of the state. That is a terrible trespass, I think.
Yeah, violation for sure.
Yeah, real violation.
Well, I want to say thank you, Sandra, for talking to me about your work and being with me. And I want to remind everyone that Unstable Language is on view on artsy.net through December 1st.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.